Welcome to Desultory Philosophy. We're back for Philosophy. We're back for a second series with Mel, aka DJ Feva. He's a local DJ and producer from Birmingham, also a politically active individual who's just back from a confrontation with Sargon of Akkad, aka Carl Benjamin. So we'll be talking about that incident as well as a general kind of journey into politics and philosophy and spirituality and everything in between. So I'll hand you over to Mel. He might want to add a little bit more to that, and we'll go straight into Mel's incidents with Carl Benjamin. So over to you, Mel.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, happy to be here. Yeah, as surreal as it is to be back in this house after many years.
Yeah.
Not the most politically active individual generally, but happy to start off with talking about that.
Cool.
I mean, obviously, provoked to confront the person concerned because of obvious issues that are presumably even closer to your heart than they are to mine.
Yes.
I don't know. Do you think it's necessary to sort of explain who this person is? I know he's in the news a lot, and obviously within certain like YouTube circles, he's very well known. But I don't know.
I think it's probably worth just giving a brief breakdown of the character. Yeah. I mean, from my point of view, I would say that Carl Benjamin is he's kind of one of quite a prominent trend at the moment of alt-right. He calls himself a classical liberal. Let's not get too kind of involved in what his politics are and just say that he is he's a
YouTube personality, isn't he? He's got a channel on YouTube. That's what he's known for primarily. He's got close to 1 million followers now on YouTube, and he's had I don't know how long he's had that large a following, but I understand he's had hundreds of thousands of followers for a number of years. He's primarily known for making videos that are commenting on current issues, and he's got a reputation, I think it's fair to say, that he's got a reputation as an anti-feminist. He obviously says, he describes himself as left-wing sometimes, which is like astonishing, but this classical liberal position that I don't buy, frankly. I think he knows, like, with what he's saying, the sort of people who are likely to gravitate to that message. And I think, in the whole anti-social justice warrior thing that's been on YouTube for so long, I think he's rode that wave very well as a self-publicist. And obviously the comments in question, what he said about your sister.
Yes. I mean, this going back to when he said this, and it was some time ago. It was about 2 years ago.
I think it's a bit longer than that. But I think it was in 2016. He said it.
Wow. Okay. At the time, I wasn't particularly actually with the world of the living very much, and it kind of flew outside of my radar. I knew that my sister had been receiving barrages of these kind of things from that particular kind of wing of politics and of the media, but I didn't really pay a great deal of attention. I remember when I first heard another member of the family talking about it. It was. They mentioned like Sargon of Akkad.
Akkad. I don't know. Yeah.
And it was like a dinner table, and I was like, "What? There's someone called Sargon of Akkad who's kind of rallying this kind of hatred and awful kind of vitriol against another family member." And I have to say that at that time and since. And I actually had conversations with him via the internet about this, and I was
you contacted him around the time the comments were first made, or
recently, where I don't know what it was that piqued the interest again. I think it was even before
he announced his MEP thing, because obviously that's what what brought it all into my mind again, basically.
Yeah. But it was something else. I don't know whether or not he just rehashed the video, the original clip, probably in the knowledge that he was going to be, standing for MEP. I don't know, but anyway, it came to my attention anyway, so I contacted him just via YouTube, and I was surprised that he responded, and he responded in a very odd way, and it was completely political. It was if your sister hadn't, if she didn't hate men, or he made it very kind of topical and political. And I kept my cool and just said, look, mate, this isn't particularly about, I'm not going to have a political discussion with you about this. This is about, I was trying to speak in his language, and I said, it's about the honour of my family here. I thought that you speak very highly about this kind of, these notions of honour and kind of masculinity and I don't know, people being able to say what they can say as long as they can physically defend their position, and he just basically wouldn't budge on it, and just was able to kind of make it completely political. And then that was the last I really had. It didn't go anywhere. I didn't want to get to the point where I was going to be physically kind of riled up to the point where I was going to go and do something. I don't really like to live my life in that way anymore. Sure. And then he stands as an MEP and doubles down on that position, and not only that, kind of, it's his following that worry me more than the man. Yeah, and what's your thoughts on that? On perhaps why he's speaking to
why so many people are listening?
Why so many people are listening? Engaging. Yeah.
Like I said, I think he's quite cleverly and in my estimation, quite cynically, rode this wave of, as I say, anti-social justice thing that's been this big, almost a movement, you could say, particularly around, I think, YouTube, I'm sure other areas in the internet as well, but a huge movement. He's rode that very well and very cynically, and I think, the term dog whistle and that, where people can, indicate things and then step away from it. This is what I mean about his whole thing where he claims to be a liberal. He says he's not right-wing. He's debated, like, extreme right-wing people to sort of show his contrast to them. Do you know what I mean? Like, but at the same time, he's done things like, he stood out in the middle of London with a megaphone surrounded by people and read out Enoch Powell's speech. Do you know what I mean? He does things to be provocative, in the name of free speech or whatever, and obviously that is signalling to a certain demographic, He stood up and defended, I wouldn't say defended, that's going a bit far, but like Elliot Rodger, the incel killer in America who murdered a few people, he's blamed feminism for that. And so you put that in context of things like the "I wouldn't even rape you" comment. To me, it's pretty clear the sort of mindset that he's trying to signal to with that kind of thing. And like, you could say it's trying to be controversial, or you could say it's playing into a really ugly mindset that obviously a minority of people do have.
So there's that term incel, and that's something that I hadn't really come across until recently. So that is a certain kind of young male.
Generally young, but not necessarily. You could have an older person who felt that way, I guess. Like. Yeah,
and they're kind of isolated, disaffected, feel threatened by the opposite sex being
incel
female.
Means involuntary celibate, so they're straight men who are attracted to women, but this is my understanding of it, but they believe they have like no chance with a woman that they deem of a decent standard, so they've kind of given up, they've ruled themselves out of it, and then it turns into this, well, it can turn into this really dangerous woman-hating thing, or it can just fester as a general resentment and disdain for women. But it has obviously a lot of crossover with sort of other, men's rights activism and anti-feminism, obviously, which is why I say, he knows he's pandering to those kind of crowds who are going to tap into him on the general anti-feminist thing. And then, I included it on... I've made a short video which I think I'm going to upload to the channel, which is my little edit of the debate I had with him, the confrontation I had with him, which is taking out some of the most cringe moments and just a lot of on my part, but also putting it in context with a lot of the other stuff he said. And one of the times when I've in the little bit of research I've done, which isn't hard to do, but one of the times I've seen him get most emotional is when blaming the Elliot Rodger killing on feminism explicitly. That's one of the times I've seen him like shouting into the microphone the most, like, and so that's why I think there is, unfortunately, a lot of people who will tap into what he says, who can then step away and go, oh, but he's not that extreme really, but then there's other people in there who are like, oh, maybe it is that extreme really. You see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do. Do you think that it's kind of part of the zeitgeist in terms of technology? Is has technology allowed this particular kind of pathology amongst these people? Has it kind of allowed an anonymous space for the very worst parts of their kind of human condition to fester?
Well, I think, you've had hate movements or whatever in politics, obviously, for a very long time, but I think, what the internet certainly has done, as a prime example of the technology that's made the huge, I guess, difference, the internet and the way the internet is used now. It certainly took down the barriers, the same way you could say, like, the way music technology's come along, it's took down the barriers for entry, like you don't have to pay for studio time, you can do most of that shit on a laptop these days.
Stuff like this, podcasts.
Absolutely. And so you got someone like, I think Joe Rogan's the biggest podcast, isn't he? And that's millions and millions of subscribers and everything,
Huge,
I don't know the numbers, but presumably that's demonstrating the capacity for an independent YouTube channel to be bigger than a television network. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
a big news corporation, or so I think there's certainly changes afoot that technology has made easier.
I've heard people talk about there's a kind of libertarianism in Silicon Valley that happened in the 90s and kind of was the breeding ground for perhaps this kind of what we're seeing now today, and I would imagine if you kind of sat in those discussions, pretty right on people in San Francisco, California, that it would have sounded, to any of us that have those slight leanings towards non-conformity and liberalism in that kind of guise, we might well have been part of those discussions, nodding away and take the power back kind of stance. And then and the internet kind of is a bit like that. But then you get this manifestation in its most kind of pure form in characters like Carl Benjamin, and there's others. There's that other. Is it Molyneux? I don't know if you've ever
Stefan Molyneux. Yeah. I have. I've come across a few of them because this is one of the things that the journalist down in Gloucester asked me about. How did you, why do you watch Carl Benjamin? I think that was how he said it. And I said, sometimes I do find it more engaging to watch people I don't agree with than people I do.
Likewise.
Stefan Molyneux. I Stephen Crowder, do you know him? He's a clown and a
I've
half.
seen him,
Like, yeah, obviously, you know, the likes of Ben Shapiro or whatever. You know, you know, people who, you know, obviously, politically, opinion-wise, opposed to me on a hell of a lot of issues. You know, I find that more engaging to watch and than some kind of mainstream left-leaning thing that I just agree with. Do you know what I mean?
But I think that if you look at the way that they've utilised the internet and utilised things like YouTube and utilised that freedom of distribution, and the way that the left haven't,
right?
Then there's really, so me and you are sat here, we're both left-wing people, and we're going to have a discussion on this kind of basis. It will be reasoned, it'll be you know relatively kind of whimsical compared to the kind of firebrand that the right have come out with. Now I can't think of an example of other than Owen Jones, who, let's face it, is pretty, you know, I'm not going to you know insult him, but it's not as captivating as those people. And let's be honest about that. When you watch, I mean, Alex Jones going all the way back, I could sit and watch Alex Jones for 7 hours just because I'm going to go on an absolutely bonkers ride. It's going to engage me.
It's entertaining.
It's entertainment. Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? Well, so...
And you know, Noam Chomsky, bless him. You know, I'd read a book over it of his and like digest it slowly. But you know, watching a video of him talk for 7 hours, keeping your attention span, that'd probably be hard. Even though he's got a lot more to say and a hell of a lot more to agree with than Alex Jones. Yeah, he's not as entertaining.
No, and this is a real problem, I think, because it's politics is being condensed down into this, and the left are not are just not providing that. I don't know if they need to, or whether or not that's just a kind of.
They say on the internet the left can't meme, and I think the idea is that the right wing's kind of won the humour culture war of the internet. I think that's certainly how they see it. You know what I mean? And you know, that they think leftists, as they say, don't have a sense of humour. Right. You know, they generally believe that. I think, or that they seem to, from what I've observed.
No, and I kind of, when you said it, I find myself in terms of internet media, kind of with a bit of a, I can kind of see that. And I suppose what they would say is that the liberal metropolitan elite, or the kind of elites that they're up against, are the kind of mainstream humour is left wing, but it hasn't got that coarse underground edge to it. And what a turn up for the books, man! I mean, no one saw this coming. No one saw that the right wing were gonna
be the edgy ones. No one saw that in the 80s, did they? Like, hell no. When the alternative comedy took off in this country, like and probably in the 80s.
And I don't know whether or not that was maybe from these beginnings at those discussions in Silicon Valley, or this is just entirely organic, whether this is the natural shifts and balances of politics, or whether there's an actual kind of concerted effort to take to this new medium and dominate. I mean, I've got no idea, but it certainly does seem to be evident. So let's take it back to what I'd like to hear is, because I was beyond delighted to hear that you were going to make that journey to Gloucester. You know, I did make it a little bit about myself, and I kind of thought, you know, at least someone's going to go down there and tackle him on this. So can you just describe maybe the week before the decision, the journey, and the event?
Sure. Yes. I mean, So going back a bit, I think I first became aware of him as Sargon when he did first make a comment. I think I clocked it in the news way back then. I saw him, and then I think it was later when I was sort of hate watching various right-wing things. I came across some of his stuff and then made the connection, oh, that's him. But yeah, he wasn't occupying a huge part of my mind until he's all in the news that he's running for MEP, and then brings it all up again, in terms of the emotional reaction and just going over it in my head. And then I saw that he's doing these things on YouTube where he's going out, and fair play to him for doing that, and obviously he's getting milkshakes and that thrown him now, which we can come to later, but he's putting himself out there in public to discuss things with people, and not that many politicians do that.
That's
so
true.
Fair play to him for that. But yeah, so I sort of seen a couple of these come up on my YouTube suggestions, like him sitting debating, and yeah, excuse me, I didn't think, I wanted to make arguments to him which weren't being made. Basically, that's how I felt watching these things. And then it was Sunday night that I clocked a thing. I think to be fair, I did go looking. I went looking, well, when is he going to be about doing it? And it was like, tomorrow he's in Gloucester. Right. Gloucester's like about as close to Birmingham as he was going to come, because he's touring the southwest. And he even went out to Gibraltar briefly.
What was that about?
But well, that's where he made the video where he doubled down. But anyway, so I seen it on the Sunday night that he was going to be in Gloucester, and I just, that's when I thought, right, let's go and do it. And I phoned Jamie and got the day off work. I phoned you, and I made sure there's nothing I needed. I made sure my responsibilities were on. I phoned you and told you I was thinking about doing it. I called a couple of people to see if someone could come down and like film me, but obviously it's extremely short notice. People have busy lives. So I thought, right, I'll just go down on my own. It was Jamie who actually suggested I make a bit of preparation. He pointed out this guy does this stuff all the time. You don't want to get there and just be totally tongue-tied. So I just sort of vented stuff that was in my head, just wrote a couple of sheets in a notepad, and got some sleep and headed down there the next day. And it was a bit of a buzz, sort of the journey there, just the idea of it. But got there and just waiting around, and I didn't, watching it back, like I say, there's a lot of cringe in it for me, and I'm glad I'd done it, but there's loads of things, hindsight's a wonderful thing. There's loads of stuff I wish I'd said better, got across better, challenged him on, had more knowledge on myself before I went. Just for example, on the knowledge thing, like the whole thing we got into, because his whole thing, his justification essentially for the original tweet to Jess was that she's a man-hater, and specifically she laughed at male suicide in this particular committee in Parliament. And his whole thing is, she blocked debate on men's issues, she's stopping people from arguing about male suicide. And what I didn't even realise is the debate in question went ahead 2 weeks later on International Men's Day, and it's gone ahead every year since then on International Men's Day. So he's, either he's misrepresenting the truth, he doesn't want people to realise it gone ahead, and he's happy to say that she blocked it, or he cares so little about male suicide that he's actually unaware that the debates went ahead specifically around male suicide on International Men's Day. And I wish I'd had that knowledge to challenge him with when he was in my face saying, well, if she's stopping them from arguing it, then they can't. You know what I mean? So there's a few things like that where I wish I'd challenged him better, or just been a bit better prepared, rather than just having some rants and a couple of little quips and one-liners sort of up my sleeve. But
I'd say in general, despite the obvious kind of barrage of incel comments in the there's no question. I think that he even acknowledged your competence. I'll give him that to a certain extent. He realised that I think there was a point where there were people in the crowd that were just kind of naysaying, and even at that point he thought, no, this guy has come to discuss, and if I was going to give him anything, I'd give him that.
If I was going to be cynical about the specific thing, I mean, in a lot of ways he was. gracious to me for whatever that's worth. He apologised to me for whatever that's worth.
Yeah.
But if I was going to be cynical about him cutting in with the audience, my impression of that was he was scared they were going to say something that it wasn't,
right,
that would be more explicit than what he might say, in terms of his the way he was like, oh, don't address them, address me, and flapping a little bit a couple of times when I did start to answer back to people in the audience. He didn't want me to be discussing with his fans. He wanted it through his own filter of how he would phrase things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean it must have been an emotive issue for you. You grew up with Jess. You've been very close to this family for many years. I wouldn't have been able to do it, and I'm glad that I've got the self-consciousness to realise that without the possibility of probably a little more than a milkshake, if I'm honest. And there was times where I saw that in the clip, and I thought, that it must have taken something, just when your heckles are rising, to take that down a notch or two. Yeah.
Sure, and I mean, I think that's where I lost focus and didn't argue as well as I can because of the emotions. Absolutely, but I'm pleased that I don't know. I think I'm lucky in that I've had a lot of practice at holding down my emotional reaction to situations, whether parenthood, relationships, work, whether with the youth offending service or the work I do now. I'm used to sort of feeling a reaction and knowing I have to hold it in and I can't act on it. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, for sure.
That was a welcome challenge for me. I'm all right at handling those kind of things most of the time. But I mean, it's there's not many situations. Most of us in our lives we try and avoid conflict, and I certainly generally in my personal life especially. We try and avoid conflict, and this was obviously a case where I went out to seek conflict. And I needed to make sure I was doing it in a productive way. I think my motivation, obviously, I cared, but there was presumably a fair bit of ego in it for myself, that I wanted to sort of feel some way that I could do something to challenge this person who I disliked so much, essentially. Yeah. But I thought it was just a better, in practical terms, I thought, so I'm sitting here raging at home. This was a decision, I guess, on the night before that led me to actually do it. Yeah. I'm sitting raging at home, looking at his smug face on a computer screen, arguing with someone else, feeling this emotion. Surely it's a better use of my energy to just go down, spend 2 hours, spend an hour driving there and an hour driving back, just to talk to him myself, rather than sit in my room stewing at him without having the opportunity to speak to him. Yeah,
and fair play for that, because I know how that feels when someone's occupying your headspace. And
it's nice if you can choose to let it go, but it's not always that easy. And this was, I was lucky to have an opportunity where I could take action that wasn't gonna, was unlikely to harm anybody, and would give me some feeling of control over the situation, I guess.
Yeah. Now, on that topic, what's your thoughts on the milkshake phenomenon? I mean, I'll tell you what I think a little bit. There's something wonderfully British about it, I would say, and it's kind of slapstick.
Sure.
Response to people who are taking themselves too seriously, and I like that element of it. And if I'm honest, when I see it raises a smile in me. That's the response that I get. Sure. But then I'm quite like you. I am Catholic in my media accumulation. I will look across the board. I'm not afraid to kind of look at other opinions, get outside of my echo chamber, and not in a mocking way, but just to read what other people think about things.
Yeah.
And there's some fairly understandable responses from people who are likely to get milkshaked, and that could be what flavours their judgment on this. But it's a projectile at the end of the day, and that can have worrying escalation, I suppose.
Yeah. It's like, if you're asking me what do I think of it as humour, I think it's brilliant as humour. I think it makes me laugh out loud, if I'm honest. But if you asking me politically what I think of it as an idea, it is like, it's not quite political violence, but it's clearly on the slope towards it, isn't it? You know, if you're damaging someone's suit, you're damaging their property. You know, it's pretty hard to actually cause someone injury. But there's got to be a series of steps you could take from like a milkshake to a tomato to a brick to all the way to a bullet. You know what I mean? There is a series of steps there. So I don't approve of it politically, but I love it comically, and as far as the left not having a sense of humour, I think the right have got a sense of humour, and Carl Benjamin has got a sense of humour when it suits him. But these people haven't got such a great sense of humour when they're the butt of the joke. And that's partly what's so funny about it.
I think so. And it is a good point on their kind of picking and choosing of where the boundaries of humour lie. And
that's another thing again, just going back to the discussion with Carl Benjamin in Gloucester, that I wish I'd doubled down on because his whole thing was, we'll try and, you're asking for an apology. I think the first thing he said was, I'm not apologising because it's in the past. Like, what kind of reason not to apologise? That just means I wouldn't apologise for anything. Obviously, you should apologise for stuff that you feel was wrong.
Yes.
And that's in the past, but then his other thing was basically she's a horrible person because she laughed at male suicide. And I got all into the thing that, she wasn't actually laughing when said male suicide and everything, and the video of that. And really, I should have, rather than holding to that point that she wasn't actually laughing at male suicide, she said afterwards she does care about male suicide, and that instead of holding firm to that point, I should have said, well, right, okay, suppose she was laughing at male suicide in general, okay? How is that a worse thing than laughing at rape of a named individual? And I know quite a lot of people who've committed suicide. I take suicide quite seriously. But fundamentally, by definition, suicide is something that sadly people do to themselves. And rape is by definition something that people do not consent to be done to them. So I don't think that's an equal comparison at all. But again, like there's no question of she was, she's allowed to have a sense of humour about anything, Obviously what she was laughing at was the idea that men don't have an opportunity to raise men's issues in Parliament. That's what provoked the burst of laughter from her. But even if she was laughing at male suicide, how does that justify direct, joke, whatever, about raping someone?
It'd be interesting to look at the classical liberal interpretation of suicide was. I can only imagine that it would be along the lines of the right to choose.
Right.
There's all sorts of crossing of paradoxes and paradigms in what they say, and I think it's I find it very, very kind of dizzying to follow a rationale in terms of what they believe, and
I think what Carl specifically and his followers have really bought into is basically it's a way to dehumanise someone. You could say she's a horrible, disgusting person because she laughed at men's suicide, therefore she's fair game for anything. She deserves it because she's so horrible. And Carl's like standing up for the poor downtrodden men in this society that are so oppressed by the evil feminists like her. And she's got all the power. He's punching up against this powerful woman who can block these debates from happening, who has the power to veto the whole House of Commons from discussing something just because she doesn't think it should be discussed. They really you know, I can't say, I can't see inside their heads, but Carl's followers really seem to believe that, you know.
And it's this, he's a game designer, is that right? Because there's a part in the video where
I just wanted to make video games.
Get back to my wife and family and make video games.
Yeah, but my conscience won't let me rest. That's what he said. Yeah. My conscience provokes me to make these kind of horrible comments, personal comments about people in the public eye to get attention of followers. My conscience compels me.
Yeah. And is there something, you know, I'm mindful not to kind of, when the term incel comes up, I don't want to start using that as my vernacular, my common vernacular too quickly, because I'm just as mindful that sometimes we can, with good intentions, label something and go, right, well, that's incels over there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think incel's even a slur. I think it's something that people self-identify.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, people say I am an incel. You know. Yeah. And I'm not trying to fundamentally connect Sargon and his followers with that specifically.
Yeah.
I brought that up because he did explicitly blame that on feminism. He said, you know, he said feminists are responsible for propagating the society that leads to poor, disenfranchised men feeling this way and having no alternative but to go and massacre a bunch of people because they can't get a girlfriend.
But this is odd. Another of their kind of mouthpieces, and this may be slightly controversial, but it's certainly someone that I hear talked about in the same breath, is Jordan Peterson, who talks about the natural state of hierarchy and the necessity of things like incels. That's explicit in what he says. He says that a lot of the social conditions that we have are based on the presence of natural hierarchies unrelated to social outside social things like the feminist movement or any other social movement. So this is what confuses me about their whole, and I suppose they don't say that they are a uniform force,
and they're not, you know. And if you're going to bring Carl Benjamin, Jordan Peterson, incels, bloody Tommy Robinson, if you're going to put all of them into one thing, you are being unfair to them. You're being unfair to all of them.
Right,
really.
They'd probably say the same. I would imagine.
And Jordan Peterson specifically, I have seen Jordan Peterson speak on the incel phenomenon.
Okay.
And his view is basically that the natural hierarchies are there, but he also thinks, you know, society should put some things in place to stop hierarchies getting out of control. Yeah. And he thinks there should be societal pressure towards monogamy, and that would solve the incel problem.
Okay.
And he talks about how, he makes some really interesting points. I love watching him on psychology. Does my head in. I enjoy watching, but it infuriates me on politics. But I love watching him on psychology. Yeah. And he talked about a study where they got heterosexual women and men, and they just showed them pictures of the opposite sex and just asked them to rate them out of 10. Just rate all these different men, all these different women out of 10. And so the men rated about 50% of the women as above average, and about 50% of the women as below average. Right. The women rated 80% of the men below average, and 20% of the men above average. So that tells you something about the selection process of mates, and that does indicate that in a free-for-all, some men would be likely to be left at that bottom without much realistic hope of a mating partner, you know? And he says, therefore society should not by law, but should culturally enforce monogamy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you. You know, in terms of his psychology, and even I would say philosophy, and his particular kind of lineage from through Jung, Nietzsche before that, and that kind of following on of an academy, of a kind of school of thought that kind of did get left off at Jung, really, and then I think he took it upon himself to kind of continue that academic lineage. But I think unfortunately that became the whole idea of the Western political Judeo-Christian individual being something almost divine. This is some kind of divine concept, and yeah, I followed that little trail myself for a while. I don't know whether it was a thought experiment or whether or not I was kind of naively kind of going there, but as the days go by, literally the days at the moment, and I see the kind of the bigger picture involved and what's implied in that, you know, I start to lose interest in what he's got to say. But in terms of that, the bravery actually to go out there and talk about something as kind of esoteric as Jung and just do it completely down the line. No, I'm going to make that intellectual leap and just talk in this way about archetypes and about this kind of born of mysticism. Actually,
well, I think he was really obsessed with all of that stuff, and then he got the kind of sudden kind of celebrity, or you know, he's suddenly a very well-known person, and then he was like, right now I've got an audience for all this this wacky shit I've been into for years that only like a small niche of people. But
just sat there in his
I think the archetypes and the stuff is where he's really passionate.
Yeah, man.
But he knows that like the speaking out on the social issues is what's going to get him the attention, the notoriety, the platform.
Do you think?
Yeah, as well.
Yeah, and I think with Carl Benjamin as well, it really probably is that simple. You know, it is paying for a lifestyle that he wouldn't have had otherwise. Carl Benjamin, you know, so this notion that his conscience can't rest, you know.
Yeah.
I don't quite buy it.
No.
I think he's probably doing exceptionally well, as is Tommy Robinson, as are a lot of these characters. You know, they're living a lot better lifestyles than we are. Okay, let's move a little bit away from that, and something that I know we're both feeling is also a kind of disillusionment with what's happening on the left as well. It's definitely something that I've started to feel. I don't know how much of that is to do with my own age situation and kind of social circumstances as well, and how much of it is that kind of disillusionment of the romanticism of revolution and radicalism.
It's certainly a cliche that people tend to move to the right as they get older, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And people always used to say that to me, and I'd be like, no, you know, I'll keep the red flag flying here and all that kind of thing. But my own kind of journey was actually in studying political science, studying communism, Marxism, and frankly looking at the Soviet experiment, and that was what really lifted the veil, and you know, the kind of Wizard of Oz moment where I was like, oh, you know, wow, fucking what you're talking about here is the very worst of human nature, actually. And then that kind of allowed me personally the kind of freedom to look into other areas of politics, places where I wouldn't have gone before, because I'd have just been so contrarian to the point that no, that's the other side, that's the dark side, and that's my kind of journey. But I think the left has to take some responsibility for this as well, in terms of certain kind of manifestations that have been happening recently. Certainly the denial of anti-Semitism in the Labour movement, the absolute denial and inability to take that seriously, showed a real kind of, I don't know. I just saw that as either you know it's there and you're not going to admit it, or you really are so blinded by ideology as to think that that might be occurring. And I mean, I don't know whether this will make the edit, but I know it to be true because I know that I at times even felt the same and spoke to other people who did. And that's how frank I can be about it. There were times where I was, you know, quite dangerously paranoid, but also delving into elements of the left that were anti-Semitic. That would openly talk about the Jewish banking system and some kind of inherent traits amongst Jewish people as being greedy and manipulative and controlling.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I certainly never. Well, you know, I have been around, you know, a handful of people a couple of times in my life, but I've never really moved in circles where those opinions have been entrenched, if you like.
Yeah.
I certainly would confess that I would, a few years ago, would still feel quite comfortable making an anti-Semitic joke, whereas I probably wouldn't make a joke at the expense of a lot of other ethnic groups. So certainly to that extent, I would say there was, you know, a lack of equality there applied on my part when I thought, you know, I'm trying to think of a good example, but maybe I shouldn't. But yeah, just kind of, you know, and jokes that generally, you know, weren't so much about deep-rooted characteristics, but more sort of loosely conspiracy based, you know. So like I've took an interest for a long time in sort of conspiracy theories, and like so I would joke, you know, oh, it must be the Jews kind of thing, without actually believing that, but I would still feel comfortable enough to make that as a joke, if you see what I mean.
As an archetype, like, almost, and
like if something that there seems to be some sort of financial or social conspiracy in society, I might joke in those kind of circumstances. That's what I'm on about. But and you know, more recently, you know, I've been in discussions with people, and obviously, I mean, maybe I don't have as deep an understanding of a lot of the things as I should, but for me it does come down to a simple thing, that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. I guess, you know, I've been guilty of being sceptical about how much genuine anti-Semitism there is in the left generally, you know, certainly in the amongst MPs in the Labour Party. I don't honestly believe that there's much genuine anti-Semitic thought amongst elected MPs in the Labour Party.
Certainly not.
And that's what annoys me, that you know, someone like Corbyn, who you know, I've got a lot of admiration for, although, you know, I certainly criticise him in some aspects, but the idea that he is an anti-Semite, I find that just annoying. As a concept, you know, because it doesn't seem to be the case to me, looking at the man, even with, you know, obviously the examples given about, you know, some of his comments in the past about and actions in the Middle East, you know, but
I mean,
sorry, and just quickly, a concern that I do have, and maybe I am seeing sort of perhaps only one side of things here, but concern I have is that my understanding is that the definition now of anti-Semitism includes, like, you can criticise Zionism up to a point, but as soon as you suggest that Israel should not exist as a Jewish nation, you are now, according to the new definition, I believe, committing anti-Semitism, and I don't agree with that, you know, as someone who's generally a secularist and doesn't believe in theologically assigned nationhood generally. I don't think, personally, that Israel should exist as a Jewish nation, and I resent being labelled as someone who hates Jews for having that opinion. And obviously, you know, and yeah, if, as you're saying, you've been obviously more politically involved than I have, more politically active, and if you're saying you've come to accept that there is genuine anti-Semitic, you know, thought entrenched in it, then yeah, that is fucking disgusting and disappointing. But yeah, to me as a bystander who, you know, considers myself, you know, perhaps possibly through layers of delusion, but who generally considers myself to be someone who has no problem with Jewish people and a political problem with the state of Israel, I resent all the hoo-ha, the way it's portrayed in the media. But obviously, if there is elements, then yeah, I would be critical of Labour leadership for not dealing with it.
Yeah, and look, you know, I didn't go and do an exhaustive, quantitative and qualitative research on this. I'm going kind of on pretty loose data, but what I would say is that if someone starts, it's a well trodden path, the path towards anti-Semitism, and there's many a lane that leads into it, and I think it would be naive to believe that there weren't elements on the left that have trod that path, and kind of there are points at which junctures meet, and I noticed that in my own thought process as much as I did in conversations with others, and that is quite terrifying, and I think the absolute no, that's not true, that kind of real aversion to that is worrying. It worries me slightly, because there's no doubt that in order for Corbynism and the momentum movement to get the traction that it has, they've had to court some pretty niche elements of the left that kind of had seemingly withered into obscurity. You know, your kind of Trots and your Maoists and all these odd kind of groups that always never really went anywhere, but just were just kind of pushed to the sidelines during New Labour. And I'm not saying that they're going to be any more anti-Semitic, but I certainly know that those ideologies, by their very nature, a lot of them can be quite radical, and even to the point of kind of advocating separation and violent revolution and things like that. And that was just a natural process that the Labour Party went through, and it's also a kind of it's what's so appealing about it to young people. I think, you know, they see that kind of, it's different, it's radical. Of course, none of them. Well, they weren't born in a time where there was the Berlin Wall was still standing, or it's not in their psyche, the actual kind of trauma of the extreme ends of either politics. I'm not going to get too bogged down into politics, so we can break it up with a little bit of other stuff, and then maybe we can get back into some politics.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so right, yeah, we've had discussions before. We both work in a similar field, although I'm not working, I'm studying at the moment. But we make our kind of life and our service about disaffected people, about you know, people who for society quite often look the other way on, you know, and probably through our own kind of journeys through life, and on the kind of underground and the fringes of society, of kind of we've got social skills in that we can talk to people in ways that other people can't, and that's challenging at times when you put yourself into that position. It can get pretty complicated, especially in group settings and stuff. we've got probably quite different approaches about what is the best kind of solution for people who are addicted, homeless, disaffected. Perhaps. I mean, there's a lot of...
I'm in favour of what works, and
Yeah.
I'm in favour of choice.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. And as am I. I suppose the way I see it, perhaps, is that the most obvious example of where it's perhaps different is in the spiritual element. So what I would advocate a spiritual program, probably first and foremost.
Okay.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Right. So.
Or not what's a spiritual program mean? What
Yeah.
does even spirituality mean? What are we actually talking about there?
Okay. So that's not something which is necessarily understood at all.
Exactly. It's a word that's used so much, and I think different people do have very different ideas of it, different understandings.
My understanding of spirituality is not religious, but also not particularly human, and that's where it can be. Some people will have humanist spirituality, which I'm absolutely all for. My own personal experience is what designates my program as spiritual is that it is non-reliant on materialism, not in the sense of he's materialistic, but in the more kind of philosophical notion of materialism, things being based on stuff and things, material reality. So in my own journey, I spent a lot of time looking for solutions within places, things, people, material, atoms, molecules and stuff, and I time and time again it would work for a time, but it just couldn't essentially hold me. And I had to come to a point where that had all been proven, had reached its limit, and I was really left with nothing else but then to look outside of
the material. So not material and not religious. Would that include thoughts then? Thoughts.
That's an interesting one, because
is what we're talking about changing our attitude and our thinking and our way of living and our behaviour? Is that all we're talking about with spirituality then?
No, I mean, thought is an interesting one, because one of the parts of my own spiritual journey was through meditation, the ability to realise that I am not my thoughts, that I am able to observe them, therefore there is something else, that consciousness, that
or at the very least there's an observing self that can step back from the doing self that's having the thoughts and notice it happening. Yeah.
And that's part of my spirituality as well. Now I don't kind of lock it into some form of philosophy or belief system that says, right, well, that other thing, that conscious thing is, I wouldn't even say it's a universal conscious. I don't know that to be the case. I believe that it is the best place to alleviate suffering and to connect with others on, if possible. Now, whether or not that's a kind of
that noticing, observing place is the best place to do that.
Or the at the very least, if enough people can realise that they are not their thoughts and how their thoughts interact with a material world, that is likely to be the best way for people to connect on a basis that isn't based on self-interest and their own agenda or ego. I wouldn't say that there's necessarily some kind of connection on a kind of psychic level, although I'm surprised at times when there's examples of that. And I think certainly when people who experiment with hallucinogens in a responsible way can tend to, have those kind of wow, almost spiritual experiences where they're kind of away from their thought in a different form of conscience and an altered conscious, and then find union with each other.
Okay, so how would a person know a spiritual experience as distinct from some of the most profound emotional experiences they might have had, or like you said about humanist spirit, like the feeling you can get being like together, whether with one person in a state of absolute intimacy, or the feeling you can get in a huge mass of people, or with one sort of intense and those kind of overwhelming feelings. How can we discern what's true spirituality rather than those things?
This is something that comes up a lot with when I'm working with others, where I'm working with other people who have also chosen a spiritual path in life, and people tend to hear spiritual experience or spiritual awakening, and then I don't know whether they're conditioned through religious iconography or not, and they can think of that as a parting of the clouds and a ray of light and a kind of road to Damascus moment, maybe, or some kind of God intervening in their lives. Now, for me, I am weary of that, to the point that if someone I was working with came to me, this is me, other people work in a very different way, but if someone comes to me and says, I had a spiritual experience last night, I felt as though God was in the room with me and the light was shining in a certain way and a dove flew across the window at some opportune moment, for me, that's not a spiritual experience. I'm not going to cotton on to that. I'm not going to give that a great deal of breathing space. I will be quite materialistic in that time. Actually, I've been known to kind of stay grounded in that sense. What I see as a spiritual experience, the most profound spiritual experience in my own life today, is that the problem of addiction, the getting up and needing to take heroin before I do anything else, has been taken from me. It is no longer exists for me, and that was something that I never thought possible, and has continued to be proven day by day, not by parting of the clouds and light shining in angels' harps, but just by a genuine miracle. I didn't do that. There was other things that I did, and then that occurred. That is a spiritual experience for me. That has shown.
And sorry, just to be clear, what that is, you're talking about an absence of desire, or just a peace with desire, knowing you don't need to act on it. What are you talking about with that? The thing that's giving you.
All of that, so where there was before a need for me to feel involved in the daily struggle against addiction, in the way that people will say, quite often kind of say, oh, all credit to you, mate, that's a fight I wouldn't want to be in, or something like that. I can genuinely say, without any form of ego or any form of nuance on that, no, that was removed from me. I didn't have a great deal to do with that. I don't feel part of that fight any longer. That's how I see it. So all of it is, all of what you're saying, the desire, the craving, the locked into certain thought patterns,
struggle with your feelings,
struggle with my feelings, all of that, the attaching feelings to using, to all of the stuff that kind of
So spirituality is not religion, is not materialism, is not thought, is not that sort of moment where the clouds part. It's more about a change that you've experienced in your own thought, feeling and behaviour. Not thought, but your own, change of experience in the nature of how you engage with your feelings and your thoughts.
Yeah, through spiritual practice. So through So in the earlier stages, committing against all logic and reason to spiritual practice such as prayer and meditation.
So supposing there was someone else who got to the same point through thinking and acting differently. Maybe they had some kind of therapy that helped them learn techniques for challenging their thinking. Maybe they were able to do an activity which they could really engage with that sort of changed the way they were living. And they got to that same point where they felt that same relief. But what makes your journey spiritual whereas theirs is not spiritual?
I would say their journey spiritual.
Okay.
Yeah. I would. Yeah, I would. Absolutely. And there's definitely no designated prescribed way of having a spiritual experience.
So someone might not be aware that they've had a spiritual experience. They might think of it very differently, but to you, that is a spiritual experience they've had.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that explains a lot. I mean, I think I'm just a naturally cynical, skeptical person. I really try and be open-minded. You know, I definitely would say I'm certainly not religious. I would say I'm agnostic if I was pushed into a corner to define myself as anything. I'd be more comfortable saying agnostic than atheist. But I certainly don't have any sort of belief. Like some people say agnostic and they have a belief but they have a lot of doubt, but I don't have a specific belief, I just have a lot of doubt. If you like if you get what I mean. But I'm certainly aware that there's a lot more to the universe than myself, and that I do a bit of mindfulness, and I don't really think of that as spiritual, but I guess in the way you're describing it, it perhaps is. But to me, I sit in a chair and I notice what's going on. I shut my eyes, I notice what's going on with my breathing, I notice sounds around me, I notice thoughts coming, I notice thoughts going, and I notice the struggle to engage with them, whether I end up engaging with them or not. I just notice this process happening, and sometimes it calms me down, and sometimes it's a real struggle and a battle. But I find that a helpful thing for helping me be more aware and present in everything else I'm doing, and to help me manage my own emotions. I don't really think of it as spiritual, but
fair enough, man.
I find it really helpful.
But what you've described is mindfulness meditation as it's been practiced for 2,600 years. You know, probably almost exactly that. You know, it's not like some kind of arcane system
Mystic
that you were
that you have to be
initiated into. And I think it could be.
Yeah, I think that's when I started to find some benefit from it was when I let go of all this whatever ideas and judgments about it or me that were getting in the way.
Yeah. How about your effect on the world around you? Because one of the things that I can myself get a little cynical about, and if I ever get onto a kind of spiritual mountaintop or high ladder, it will be, I could quite easily say, oh well, that person, because they have no spiritual basis for their lives, don't understand or are more careless in their actions than I am. And I freely admit that that's me putting myself on a bit of amount of it. But
what would I think of them people rather than a spiritual melody?
How do you see your effect on the world around you and the possible ramifications and ripples of that? Is it in a purely materialist way? I.e., if I disturb that person, harm that person, fuck with that person, I have responsibility for that in material terms, that will make them materially worse, and they could materially harm someone else.
Sorry, just so I understand the question.
Yeah.
Do I feel that my behaviour affects other people in a way that goes beyond the material?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. But but that could encompass the mental and emotional without necessarily having to encompass the spiritual.
Yeah.
To my mind, yeah. But certainly it goes beyond the material. Yeah, obviously, when we interact with people, it goes a lot deeper. Yeah, we don't have to touch them to touch them. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose what when I am feeling that way, and there are parts of me that do kind of consistently feel that way, I feel that for myself, when I live my life by a spiritual basis, in this kind of understanding of things beyond a material kind of realm, that I am in a much safer position in terms of harming others through this acknowledgement of a spiritual existence, that there is, that I am part of something else and that I can connect with. I
don't know, I guess, I believe, we've all got a choice to do the wrong thing or the right thing. I kind of think most of us, apart from the really disturbed, have a pretty clear idea of what really is good and right when it gets down to the deeper level. Maybe I'm delusional thinking that, but I don't really think we need a specific spiritual path to teach us that. I do think we need to be in touch with the fact that we're not an island and we do have an impact on those around us. We basically need to know what's really important to us and try and focus on that. And obviously family and kids comes near the top for a lot of people. But I think the meaning in life is where you find it. We can almost choose where we attach meaning to. Like, you might meet people who might have been married for years and years, raised families, travelled the world, but the most meaningful moment of their life was Villa winning the cup in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it was something that they've made important to them. And if music was the most, or art or literature, or your missus was the most important thing to you, then fair enough, man. Whatever's important to you, find your meaning in that.
What if your meaning is rape jokes?
Well, obviously. So then there's how we interact with each other in society, isn't there? And how we should hold each other to decent standards. And I don't think there should legally be a law against rape jokes as far as the whole free speech, that argument goes. I'm not saying we need to restrict speech to that level, but I do think speech has consequences. Free speech is not the same as, I can say what I want and I'd get away with it without anyone challenging me for it. That's the sort of thing that if you said it to someone in the pub, you'd get a beating.
Yeah.
Why should you be allowed to say that on a public platform and not expect to be challenged, hated, ridiculed and everything else for it? And that's not about the law, that's about how we as human beings interact with each other. That's and you can say, I don't particularly like using terms like common decency or the right thing, but really. I think there's spirituality can mean those things, and it does to religious people. I suppose there are people who that they've got that value system. That's how they attach meaning, and that's how they kind of don't
cross certain lines.
As far as morality, for me personally, I guess I have a fairly selfish outlook on morality in that I've noticed that I feel better about myself when I try and do what I think is the good and right thing to do. And I've noticed that I feel pretty shit about myself when I've gone and done something that I know is not the right thing to do. So I notice a direct benefit to myself for doing the right thing in most circumstances. And obviously I'm not a completely moral creature. I'm no saint by a very long way, but I think that's what most of the time keeps me on the right path, is just self-interest. To be honest, that I'm going to be better off if I'm doing the right thing by the people around me and myself. You know,
rational actor, they call
if
it.
You like.
The rational actor kind of in the political science world is very hard stuff to argue against, actually, in economic terms and in kind of game theory terms in political science. It's
like free market economics. I'm not so sure then. I think there's a flaw in the self-interest there where it doesn't benefit everyone clearly once everything becomes about individual profit, and that's but in terms of just a community living together, then wanting to be accepted and liked and involved with the community can be, even without a legal framework there to prevent the most heinous acts, that keeps most people in check, you know what I mean, with their behaviours. They don't want to be known as a wrong-un, you know what I mean, so they don't do wrong things, and as I say, if you notice not just the material impacts but how you feel, and you could say that's a spiritual level, but how you feel about yourself in terms of the way you behave. I guess that's what I've learned. I learned very young, that I didn't want to get caught for doing the wrong thing. It took me a lot longer to learn that I would feel shit for doing the wrong thing, even if I got away with it. There wasn't really any getting away with it. But to me that's not necessarily spiritual. But maybe I'm just being too pedantic.
Or maybe I'm being too prescriptive, or kind of putting an aim on. But thankfully we can have this kind of discussion without it coming to any kind of real conflict.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So music is a huge part of your life. Has been a huge part. If I think of my kind of memories with you, they're kind of more music based than they are narcotic based, which is kind of saying something. They really are. If I think of you, I think of music. That'll be the first things, that the memories that we've shared through different eras of music. It's really quite, it has a beautiful tale to tell through sound. And I know that's from the early. I can remember we used to make tapes. Back when that was a highly laborious process.
All about the pause button.
Yeah, man. And we'd spend days doing that, day after day doing that, making letting our imaginations really get away, putting bits of music together that meant different things, and then we had older brothers, both of us involved in music in their own kind of ways. So your brother had the ones and twos, the 1210s, and that was always kind of sneak and get on the decks when you could, or kind of hustle your way through as a young gun, trying to get on the decks, and likewise the room we're in now is littered with accoutrements of kind of musical production and stuff, and it was the same, sneaking up here as a young un to try and fiddle around with all the knobs and have a go at music, and it's also a kind of constant as well. All sorts has happened and come and gone in our lives, but the music has remained there. So how do you feel about music in your life?
It's I don't know. I don't massively. I don't massively sort of think about the role it plays. I guess it's just it's fairly routine and automatic. It's more like it's my comfortable process to go back to. It's more like it's my escape and my space to express myself and feel comfortable more than anything else. Like I guess it's I don't know, and there's obviously, I mean, as a DJ, you're in the overlap right between listening to other people's music and providing a musical performance of your own. You're right in that cross section, but I guess apart from DJing, those are a bit more separate for me. And these days I'm not listening to loads of music for pleasure, really. I'm spending much more time making music, or preparing music to play out, which obviously there's very pleasurable elements, but I don't really spend hours discovering new music that just for pleasure that often anymore, obviously every now and then, but it's more a process that I've it's almost, I don't know, you could say it's almost like I don't know, an autistic coder getting lost in their own world of trying to make systems within a set, or like a computer game addict who rather than live a real life, they're in there making their achievements within the parameters of a computer game. But I can just get lost in music. But it does also as well, obviously, connect with other people.
I think we'll put, if it's all right with you, put a few examples available. Probably, I'm sure Joe can probably put them on the screen as I'm saying it now. Some ways of people understanding what you do and what you mean by that, because I know, and it's all very well for me to go, you're kind of feverizing. You're doing what you do, just like. Making it feverish and then put it's worth listening to.
I should probably say, I'm not a conventional musician. I'm not sort of accomplished on any conventional instrument. I guess the only instrument you could say I'm accomplished on really is sort of turntables, scratching and that. But I don't know. I like I guess, if I was being a bit arty about what I do, it's combining music in different ways, and then it's also deconstructing and isolating bits in different ways. And obviously, it's, old school hip hop turntablism and dub, and the way that dub techniques of, are so integral to most sort of modern production methods. It's just playing around with music, right?
Well, I mean, I know you can talk about it in those terms, but I know you are a student of it, and the deconstruction thing, man. If I was going to get a little arty on it, it is to stand back and watch what in particular you deconstruct and reconstruct. It's got its own palette that obviously speaks to me, but I think just by the kind of the breaks and the loops and the bass lines and the techniques that you use, the kind of pastiche of things that you sample. I know you got a project, Enter the Dragon, with Enter the 36 Chambers. It's just a beautiful marrying of Anderton Park Road in the early 90s,
I mean, Enter the Dragon all through the 80s as well for me. 80s, that video was, it was up there with Flash Gordon and Back to the Future in the rotation in my house. And obviously through the 90s and onwards with Wu-Tang. I mean, I guess I felt in a way with some of the production I was getting in a little bit of not a rut, but I was concentrating too much on making sort of stuff that might be sort of release worthy or whatever, and I just thought, because it had sort of occurred to me, I don't know, a while before that it might kind of work, but I'd sort of dismissed it as being something that's like, that's you know, just going to be a bit niche, and you know, it's not really, you know, it's obviously not particularly releasable on a copyright basis. It's also not very danceable. You know, these aren't tunes you're ever going to play out in your DJ sets, or not that likely to play out in most of your DJ sets.
Yeah.
So I kind of dismissed it. But yeah, at Christmas I was just feeling a little bit sort of uninspired with the things I was doing, and I just started the master plan, and yeah, the audio was pretty much finished in March, but then I decided to start learning how to edit video, which I've never really done before. So we're now close to the end of May, and it's getting there. It's I'm sort of in the sort of finishing touches stage with the video stuff, I'd say.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to it. You really enjoyed it?
Absolutely. As a process, it's been you know, obviously there's aspects of it that can get a bit laborious. I mean, there's things about the video editing that I just wish I'd understood earlier. Like there's just basic things in a workflow where, like, you know, if I'd trimmed this file to the right size before I chopped it into 50 little pieces, then I wouldn't have to go into each individual little piece to resize it now. So there's those kinds of really laborious aspects as you get further into it. But yeah, certainly the start bit, the creative process was immensely enjoyable. Like, and it's just purely the soundtrack to the film, and like drums and Wu-Tang vocals. So
yeah, and presumably you've got to kind of span all the way through all the solo projects as well, and in terms of the Wu artists, or is it
like
just
the acapellas that are used? So it's mostly early-ish. It's pretty varied, you know. It's a process of, you know, starting from the music. Like, I knew I wanted to use every single tune on the Enter the Dragon soundtrack, and so then it was a case of chopping and looping the bits that I liked out of all of those tunes, putting drums to them. But then it was a case of so what's going to work in terms of like the tempo, the energy of the acapella, what's going to fit the beat. It was kind of guided more by the Enter the Dragon stuff. What Wu-Tang vocals ended up going on it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, definitely look forward to that, and make sure you let us know.
Yeah, I sort you out the audio now, and when the video's all done, I guess I'll create a YouTube channel. I don't know. I mean, it's been a lot of fun. I'm not expecting too much, but I'm hoping it might have the potential for a little bit of a kind of slightly viral thing. I'm hoping it might get noticed a little bit on YouTube or whatever.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think people have noticed your live performance and your kind of, you've got a style, and that is something worth holding on to, and it's certainly not the case for all kind of DJs. You know, some people, you could play me a set and it could be one of 400 people, to be perfectly honest with you. But if there's certain DJs, when I hear a set, it's like, that's Feva. You've got that, and I think that has been noticed before, and I'm sure will be noticed.
Yeah,
again.
I mean, I've never been particularly the best at self promotion or anything, but yeah, I like to think with the DJing, I've got a pretty good balance of the technical side, but balance with, I guess you could say, the spiritual side. The soul, the expression. Kind of the way you can sort of, even though you're generally playing other people's music, not always, but generally playing other people's music, you can still find your own voice in how you play that, how you manipulate it.
It's a form of expression that comes across, isn't it? If it's done well, it's not just throwaway tunes that work well on dance floors. You can tell that where it comes in a set and how the set's put together, that has meaning to the DJ.
I like to celebrate the art of it, and I like to have those sort of aspirations or whatever. But at the same time, it is generally, if you're out in a venue playing records, it is about getting the people to react to what you're playing in a positive way. You know, so yeah, you can't always. If you elevate the art too much, you'll never get a booking. Do you know what I mean? You know, I've kind of said before. You know, you might have, you know, DMC 5 times champion. You know, tearing it up in one room at your venue. But if you got some kid with virtual DJ on his laptop in the other room, if he's actually got more people dancing at that night, then in that moment, right then, he is the better DJ, even if he hasn't got a fucking clue. If he's getting the people dancing, then he's doing the job in that moment. So as much as I, you know, respect the craft and I'm a student and, you know, I try and elevate myself to a certain level, I think you can't lose sight of the raw. At the end of the day, you're playing music, you know, get on with it, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like, fair enough. Yeah, it is a job that you're being paid for. And that's an interesting way of looking at it.
You know, and hopefully, you know, you know, obviously something like, you know, so tomorrow I'm playing again at the Cuban Embassy. It's not the Jamaica Cuba thing. It's just the straight Latin kind of vibe. And obviously that's not, you know, that's not my, it's not the stuff I've got the most connection to personally to play, but, you know, what I aim to do is to, you know, do my job in terms of playing that music and making the people dance, but at the same time, find my own space, my own enjoyment, my own expression while I'm doing that. And that's, you know, it's quite a fun challenge to, you know, it's always good to have parameters on your creativity. Do you know what I mean? If you're too free, then you can do anything, but where'd you bloody well start? You know, if you limit yourself, like, it's the same with something like the Wu-Tang and Bruce Lee thing. You know, by putting the confines on it, that's what allows you to get creative. Whereas if I just said, you know, anything goes with it, then it wouldn't be as coherent. It wouldn't, you know what I mean.
Well, I mean, I've heard you play Latin sets before, and somehow, you make it your own still. And that's what I mean. Like, you know, there is, and maybe that's just because I know you and I know your character, but
I think I struggle to do it with music. I really, really strongly dislike, because you know, I'm not a Latin music aficionado, but I like most of it. You know, it sounds cool. But you know, music I'm a bit more resistant to. Like, I don't know if I had to do like really heavy techno set or something. I'd almost relish the challenge to a certain degree, but I don't think I'd find it as easy as I would with something like, say, the Latin stuff. It
might be worth trying, man. I almost feel like challenging it. Do a house set or something. I mean, a house would probably be a little easier, but just a banging techno set might be.
Or like same way, like, you know, death metal or gabba.
No, see that,
or,
you know,
I don't know.
I think I would probably relish the journey myself into understanding, trying to get into that by listening to a lot of it and finding out what is good and what's bad in it. Maybe beginning to understand what that kind of primal element to something like death metal is, because there's been times in both of our lives where there was a punk ethos, or there was definitely a fucking...
Oh, sure, and I love, like, you know, the Clash, Radiohead, two of my favourite bands, definitely, you know, like, so, I'm not adverse to rock generally, but
I bet
really screamy techno or rock, I guess, would be a struggle, but
I'd say that there's probably a spiritual element in somehow. You'd probably say an emotional element, but yeah. Okay. All the best, brother.
Wicked. Cool.